Creepypastas are horror-related legends shared around the internet. To name a few, you've got Slenderman, the Backrooms, or even Jeff the Killer, many of which came from the most influential time of our childhoods. But what if we jump into Star Wars to explore the darkest, unexplored depths of the franchise that required me to do some painful research? That includes stories like the Ewoks eating the stormtroopers on Endor, and also a haunted protocol droid on Tatooine. Just don't get offended if I don't include Darth Jar Jar, because I'm pretty sure most of y'all already know that one.
Ouch time.
Starting off with the Endor Holocaust, this refers to how after the destruction of the second Death Star, if the movies were scientifically accurate or even just slightly logical, that massive country-sized chunks of debris from the station would be pulled towards the forest moon that it previously orbited, causing the wreckage to move around and onto the forested rock. This would decimate the biosphere, causing certain extinction for the entire Ewok race, as well as all other fauna, due to the fact that not only would the debris destroy the surface, but then also throw massive clouds of dust into the air, blocking out the sun and causing extra catastrophe. Even the combined efforts of every rebel shield from their vessels, and even the Imperial shields for that matter, would not be enough to block the death that would rain upon the moon. Also, while an evacuation might save a very small percent of the concentrated species, it would still wipe out the mass bulk of them. Also, think about how the Chicxulub asteroid, which is 6 miles wide, was able to kill all of the dinosaurs, whereas the 120-mile width of this battle station can barely be imagined. This myth, which was started by Curtis Saxton on a fan site, was excused in Star Wars lore by the solution that most of the debris was simply vaporized while the remaining bits were tractor beamed up by the rebels, which was the opposite of the Imperial propaganda that tried to make the galaxy think the destruction wiped out Endor. So this is explored a little bit in The Rise of Skywalker when we see on Kefbir, which is supposed to be another moon. We see a little bit of the wreckage, but that doesn't even make too much sense because that chunk would probably be vaporized, let's be honest. So if the Ewoks were there, they just would have all died completely, and they just really would have stood no chance. Another fan theory states that the Ewoks ate the stormtroopers and other Imperials on Endor after the battle, which might seem crazy at first until you realize that the Ewoks were going to eat Luke, Han, and Chewbacca earlier in the film. Also, in the first book of the Star Wars Aftermath trilogy, Singer says in a flashback that a fellow Imperial will become food for the Ewoks. This, on top of the empty helmets seen as drums in the victory celebration, makes this theory quite likely if you ask me. So yeah, I mean, the Ewoks really were, even if they were kind of cute and small and stuff, they were kind of deadly creatures, and they would eat humans without even a second of hesitation. And no wonder my Stormtrooper veteran grandpa started breakdancing on the floor after I gave him a teddy bear. And you tell me in the comments, what's worse, the Endor Holocaust or the Ewoks actually eating the stormtroopers? I don't know. Our next entry is the Darth Maul concept art, and when in early stages of development for the prequel trilogy, many Sith Lords were designed for the movies. Some of these that were never used was a female Nautolan Sith with pale skin that would later turn into Kit Fisto, as well as the witch-like designs of Mother Talzin and Asajj Ventress. It is interesting that George obviously intended to have one of the villains of this trilogy as a woman, but this would never end up happening until much later when some of that stuff was reused for the Clone Wars, of course. For Darth Maul though, Lucas asked Ian McCaig, an artist, to make his worst nightmare become the design, and after finishing this sketch and showing it to George Lucas in a folder, George said, "Oh my god," and slammed it shut, and then asked McCaig to draw his second worst nightmare instead. When describing this original piece, Ian McCaig described it as that face that's peering in at you through the window late at night and it's barely alive, like a cross between a ghost and a serial killer staring in at you, and it's raining and the rain is distorting the face. From that vision, he just stylized it and then added dreadlocks instead of rain. Even the final Darth Maul look has a satanic, terrifying element to it with the Sith eyes, bared teeth, horns, and red and black skin, but there's no denying that if this creature was staring in on you at night, it would definitely be very unnerving. And I can only imagine if this creature was the villain of episode 1 instead of Maul, things would have gone differently. Like perhaps they would crawl into the Jedi Temple at night to kill Qui-Gon in his sleep. I don't know, something like that could happen, but it is a cool design, and on the subreddit I got this one from, I saw a lot of people joking about when Darth Maul was going to drop his next album, so yeah, I don't know, but It is very creepy, and it does lean a little bit too much in the horror aspect, I guess, for George. Next up, we have Nobot. In Legends, the Mos Espa vendor, Jira, would tell you the story of a 3PO unit known as either Nobot or Ghost Droid that wandered the sands of Tatooine aimlessly and would always end up back at Mos Espa. According to her story, Nobot had seen a young pregnant girl get murdered and played an audio recording of the event where you can hear her pleading for her life before being killed. Jira also states that it might have actually been Nobot himself that killed the girl, but no one really knows. Whatever the case, some believe this ghost droid was haunted by evil spirits or even the dark side of the Force, and their serial number had been scorched off, which was on top of their scorched side, covered a lot of the silver plating of their armor. They were, according to folktale, originally found decades ago in Mos Espa as the lone survivor to the murder, with blaster fire scorch marks and also dried blood covering their body. In canon, Nobot is easily spottable walking past Qui-Gon, Padme, and Jar Jar on Tatooine, wandering as it always does. And also in LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga, there is a mission surrounding the droid in a haunted Mos Espa hovel. Yet again, another background character that has 3 seconds of screen time and has a lot of unnecessary extensive lore. I'm just playing, you know I love these characters, man. As creepy as this droid is, what about Jira? I mean, why does she randomly know this story? I guess she probably just came up with it, and apparently she would use this story to actually get more money from people, which is very clever. But yeah, this is kind of a creepy droid, and just kind of imagine if you could see it wandering around all over Tatooine. That would be very strange. And also apparently it was somewhat indestructible, with like Tusken Raiders and farm boys trying to destroy it or leave it in the Dune Sea, but then it would always come back. Also, one thing I have not done enough is play LEGO Star Wars Skywalker Saga. I got that about a year ago when it came out, of course, but then I think I played through all of the story, and then after that I was kind of just like, you know what, I don't care anymore. So yeah, but it does look like a cool game, and I should probably play it a little bit more. It is cool that they have all of these missions and stuff. I mean, this is a very vague character, so it is pretty cool that this is in there. Next up is a Battlefront 2 creepypasta. This entry is talking about a picture posted on the r/Star Wars Battlefront subreddit, where we can see a single image with the caption Creepypasta Maz and Chewbacca. In the picture, we see a First Order officer playing Blast in the side of some map with a painting of Maz Kanata with her eyes black, as well as another set of eyes behind her belonging to a mysterious figure. Chewbacca, a Wampa, or something else, who knows? But whatever it is, it's definitely eerie. Also, does anyone know for sure what map this is? I'd assume Maz's castle on Takodana, but I'm just not exactly sure. From the little we can see of it here, so if anyone could help, that would be great. Now, this post has very little of an actual story to go with it, so I guess I'll just have to make up one to add my contributions to the internet. You get home from school one day, deciding to play some good old Battlefront, and you get into a match of Blast on Takodana, and you're honestly having a good time. But then mid-match, you come across this painting on one of the levels of the building, which you think, huh, that's strange. Then after finishing the match, you start to matchmake for the next one, and then, what's that? We're back on Takodana. Well, hesitantly, you decide to continue, and when you load up this time, you're already spawned in the castle, and all of the doors to the outside are locked. Also, only a few other players that keep lagging a bunch are in the game, and when you go back to the spot where the painting was, it's now gone, and then the music suddenly cuts out. The next few matches, each mysteriously teleporting you back to Takodana, get progressively worse until the last one, which has no players other than one red dot to indicate a hero on the edge of the map. Now the roof of the castle is available, and as you go up to the top, the entire sky is black and blood red with no sign of the sun, and in the distance you hear a distorted cry of a Wookiee, but something doesn't sound right. You take off your headphones before realizing the creature's roar is coming from outside, in fact, in your very backyard. Yeah, so I hope that was good enough for this creepypasta.
The ability to speak does not make you intelligent.
That is something from a game I do like a lot, so that was nice. Next up, we have the TK-710 actor, and this was one of the stormtroopers guarding the entrance to the Millennium Falcon that gets his armor stolen, which is then worn by Han later in the movie on the Death Star. The other trooper here is TK-421, who is played by the extra Stephen Bailey that has no clue about the identity of TK-710's actor, other than that he most likely passed away in 2016. This is strange because of the 50 or so those Stormtrooper extras, almost all of them have been credited, when this guy, who plays a relatively large role in the grand scheme of things, is just completely unknown by the whole cast and crew. Also, I find it weird that Bailey somehow knows when he died but still can't give us his name. That's just strange to say the least. Now, it is also important to mention that Stephen Bailey did know this guy at one point in the 70s, who was apparently an older gentleman in his 40s while Stephen was 20-something. That was an antique dealer and would give him rides in his Ford Fiesta, but he just kind of forgot about him, which I guess makes sense after 40 years straight, but imagine being the Stormtrooper that was forgotten about. And like a bunch of the ones on here, I actually found this on a Star Wars iceberg. I saw it at the very bottom and I was thinking this has gotta be something really creepy, like maybe this guy was a mass shooter or something, but nope, he's just a mysterious guy that no one knows the identity of, and unfortunately that's probably the case with a lot of these extras because no one really cares enough to write their names down. To end on a more light note, after all this dark stuff, we have Bigger Luke. This is talking about a slightly taller version of Luke Skywalker seen throughout episode 4 that seems to disappear after that movie as two realities merge. Basically, in certain shots in A New Hope, a slightly taller version of Luke randomly pops up at certain points, like when Luke is standing next to Han on the Death Star scenes, and scouring through the internet for instances of BL, the abbreviation of Bigger Luke, is known as luking. Yes, that's right, luking. There is a whole page just dedicated to all the terms and stuff in this category of the internet. A fan theory suggests that Bigger Luke is a different version of Luke from the multiverse that goes on to fail in his reality and then goes to Luke's dimension to save him whenever he gets in trouble, which is how Luke is able to not be hit by Stormtrooper bolts or also survive his first war situation at the Death Star trench run. But now we're going way too far down the rabbit hole, so I'll stop here. But I do have to admit, it is kind of a cool theory because there is that one moment after Obi-Wan dies where Luke is literally just standing there and there's like 10 Stormtroopers shooting straight at him. He's not dodging or anything, he's just standing right there, so maybe this makes even more sense now. But anyway, that's it for this video. You can subscribe if you want to. I upload every Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I also post shorts on Saturday. But yeah, see ya.